It was Mother's Day, and my daughter Jessica handed me a beautiful, handmade card. She smiled and said, "Mom, read it out loud for everyone." So I did. My voice was filled with warmth, the kind a 74-year-old grandmother feels when she's surrounded by her family. "Roses are red, violets are blue." I started, my eyes tracing the crayon drawings my grandkids had made. And then, the next line hit me like a physical blow. "You're a crushing burden. We don't want you." The world stopped for a moment. And then, the laughter started. My name is Clara, and that was the moment my life split into two distinct parts, the before and the after. Let me paint you a picture of that morning. The sun was streaming through the windows of Jessica's perfect suburban home. I had arrived right on time, wearing my favorite blue floral dress, the one that always made me feel a bit special. In my arms, I carried a bouquet of fresh peonies and a box of pastries, still warm from the bakery. My grandson, Leo, who was just 7, spotted me first. "Grandma!" he shouted, launching himself at my legs. His little sister, Mia, was right behind him. Their hugs were pure sunshine, a warmth that spread through my entire chest. For a moment, it was everything I ever wanted. My son-in-law, Tom, was sitting on the couch, scrolling through his phone. He glanced up, gave me a nod that was barely a nod at all, and then his eyes were back on the screen. It was the kind of dismissal I had slowly, painfully, gotten used to. Jessica came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. "Mom, you made it," she said with a bright, brittle smile. The kind of smile that lives only on the surface. "We have a little surprise for you. Sit down, sit down." So I sat, nestled between my grandkids on the plush sofa. The air was thick with anticipation. Jessica pulled a shimmering pink envelope from the mantelpiece and presented it to me with a flourish. "It's from all of us," she announced. "Go on, read it out loud." My hands shook just a tiny bit as I opened it. I saw the clumsy, colorful drawings from Leo and Mia and my heart swelled. How precious, I thought. I took a deep breath, ready to read some sweet, sentimental poem. "Roses are red, violets are blue." My voice was steady, happy. But the words that followed felt like they were written in acid. "You're a crushing burden. We don't want you. Your time is over. It's time to disappear. With love, your family who can no longer have you here." For 3 long, echoing seconds, there was absolute silence. I could hear the clock ticking on the wall. I could hear my own heart hammering against my ribs. And then, Tom let out a short, barking laugh. A cruel, ugly sound. Jessica quickly covered her mouth with her hand, but it couldn't hide the giggles that escaped. She was laughing too. Leo and Mia, seeing their parents laugh, started to titter nervously, not understanding the joke but knowing it was at my expense. "Oh my God, Mom, your face!" Jessica gasped, tears of mirth streaming from her eyes. "Tom, did you get a picture? You should have seen yourself." The card slipped from my fingers and fluttered to the floor. A hot wave of shame and disbelief washed over me. Tears, thick and salty, began to carve paths down my wrinkled cheeks. This couldn't be real. "It was just a joke, Mom," Jessica said, waving a dismissive hand. "You've always been so sensitive. Lighten up." Tom stood up and ambled over, picking up the card. "Yeah, Clara, just a bit of fun. But," he said, and his tone shifted, becoming uncomfortably serious, "there's a grain of truth in every joke, right? You have been? A lot lately. Maybe it's time to start looking at other living arrangements." "Living arrangements?" I stammered, my voice a hoarse whisper. "You know," Jessica chimed in, her laughter gone now, replaced by a cold pragmatism. "There are some wonderful assisted living places these days. For people your age. You could make friends, have activities. You'd be more comfortable. We have our own lives to lead, Mom." The floor seemed to drop out from under me. They wanted to put me away. They were packaging my exile as a gift. My own daughter, the baby I had rocked to sleep, was talking about me like I was an inconvenient piece of furniture she needed to get rid of. I managed to get to my feet, my body feeling ancient and heavy. I think I should go home." "Fine, Mom," Jessica said, already turning her attention to the kids. "We'll call you sometime this week." No hug. No drive safe. Nothing. I walked out of that house with my head held high, but inside, my world had been reduced to rubble. That night, alone in the quiet of my small house, I didn't just cry. I grieved. I grieved for the daughter I thought I had, for the family I thought I was a part of. But as the hours ticked by and the tears dried up, something else began to bubble up from the depths of my sorrow. It was a cold, hard feeling. It was anger. And with that anger came a strange, forgotten sense of clarity. They thought I was a fragile, dependent old woman. A burden. They had no idea who I really was. And they had no idea what I was capable of. I sat in my favorite armchair, the one with the worn floral pattern, and forced myself to trace the path that had led me to this moment. How did I become a joke to my own daughter? It all started when I was 29 years old. Jessica's father, my husband, walked out on us. He didn't even have the courage to say goodbye. He just left a note on the kitchen counter that said, "This isn't the life for me." Just like that, he was gone. I remember holding a 3-year-old Jessica in my arms as she cried for her daddy. That night, rocking her back and forth, I made a silent vow. I swore that she would never, ever want for anything, and for the next 45 years, I kept that vow with every fiber of my being. I took a job at a textile factory, working double shifts until my fingers were raw and my back was a constant, screaming ache. Every penny I earned, every ounce of energy I had, went to her. When she was a teenager, she came to me with shining eyes and told me her dream was to become a nurse. The tuition was astronomical, far beyond what I could afford. So, without a second thought, I sold my mother's jewelry, a collection of beautiful, sentimental pieces that were the only things of real value I owned. "Mom, are you sure?" she had asked, her voice thick with emotion. I just smiled and tucked a stray piece of hair behind her ear. "My darling, your future is the most valuable thing in the world." While she was in college, I took on a second job, cleaning office buildings on the weekends. I'd come home smelling of bleach, so tired I could barely climb the stairs. But then I'd see her asleep at the dining room table, surrounded by textbooks, and it was all worth it. The day she graduated, I cried harder than anyone in the audience. She hugged me so tight, her cap digging into my shoulder. "We did it, Mom," she whispered. "I couldn't have done any of this without you." Those words were my reward. They were everything. Or so I thought. I thought those words, "We did it, Mom," were the pinnacle of my life's work. Proof that every sacrifice had been worth it. And for a little while, it seemed like it was. Jessica met Tom a year after she started her first nursing job. He was a project manager for a construction firm, polite, ambitious, and he seemed to absolutely adore her. I liked him. I wanted to see my daughter happy, and he made her happy. When they decided to get married, they planned a beautiful, elaborate wedding. Far more than they could afford on their own. Jessica came to me, her face a mixture of excitement and worry. "Mom, it's so much money," she'd said. I remember smiling and taking her hand. "It's the most important day of your life," I told her. "You deserve for it to be perfect." I wrote them a check for $15,000, money I had been carefully saving for my own retirement for over a decade. It hurt to see that number leave my account, but the look of pure joy on her face made it feel like the right thing to do. A couple of years later, they wanted to buy a house. They had found the perfect place in a good school district, but the down payment was a huge hurdle. So, I did what I always did. I drained my main savings account and gave them $30,000. It was every last liquid cent I had to my name. I was living on my modest Social Security check, but I told myself it was an investment in my family's future, in my grandchildren's future. Seeing them standing on the porch of their new home, keys in hand, filled me with a satisfaction that felt deeper than money. Then the grandkids came along. First Leo, then Mia 2 years later. They were the absolute lights of my life. When Jessica's maternity leave ended, she was stressed about childcare costs. "It's so expensive, Mom, I might have to quit my job." I wouldn't let that happen. Not after everything we'd sacrificed for her career. So, I made a proposal. "I'll watch them," I said. "It would be my joy." And so, my second career began, full-time, unpaid nanny. Every morning, for 4 years, I would be at their house by 7 a.m. I made breakfast, packed lunches, went to the park, handled nap times, cleaned the house, and started dinner. When Jessica and Tom came home from work, the house was tidy, the children were happy and fed, and their lives were in perfect order. In those early days, I was showered with gratitude. "Mom, you're a lifesaver," Jessica would say, giving me a tired hug. "We literally couldn't do this without you." But gradually, like the slow turning of a season, things began to change. The thank yous grew less frequent, replaced by an air of expectation. My way of doing things, once praised, was now second-guessed. If I suggested Leo might have an ear infection, Tom would say coolly, "We're his parents. Clara. We'll decide if he needs a doctor." The first time he said it, it stung, but I told myself I was overstepping. I tried to be smaller, quieter. Then the comments about my age started. "Mom, are you sure you have the energy for the park today? Maybe just a quiet day at home." Or, "Clara, I think you gave Mia the wrong dosage of Tylenol again. Maybe you should write it down." They said it with feigned concern, but the message was clear: "You're getting old. You're becoming incompetent." The real turning point, the one that should have opened my eyes, happened about a year ago. It was Leo's 6th birthday party. I arrived early, as I always did, ready to help with balloons and setting out food. But when I knocked, Tom opened the door with a look of pure annoyance. "Clara, the party doesn't start for another 2 hours. "Oh," I said, my smile faltering. "I just thought I could help you get ready." "It's all handled," he said flatly. Over his shoulder, I could see his mother, Susan, cheerfully hanging a "Happy Birthday" banner in the living room. She had been invited to help. I was being treated like an early, inconvenient guest. I spent that entire party sitting in a chair on the patio, watching a life I had financed from a distance. Later that evening, as I was quietly clearing away paper plates, Leo came up to me. "Grandma," he said, "Grandma Susan says you're too old for loud parties now." The innocent words of a child, delivered like daggers. Even after that humiliation, I kept giving. When Tom was laid off from his job, they were terrified of losing the house. "Just until I get back on my feet," he promised. I started sending them $500 a month. Tom found a new, better-paying job 6 months later, but the $500 transfer became a permanent fixture. They never mentioned it, and I never stopped it. It was just expected. Last Christmas, I spent nearly $2,000 on gifts for them. A new laptop for Leo, a tablet for Mia, expensive perfume for Jessica, a set of power tools for Tom. But my most important gift was for Jessica. It was a delicate pearl necklace that had belonged to my grandmother. A family heirloom. I imagined the moment she'd put it on, connecting 4 generations of women in our family. When she opened the box, she glanced at it for a second. "Oh, it's pretty, Mom," she said, before closing the lid and setting it aside. "But you know I don't really wear jewelry like this. Maybe just keep it for Mia for when she's older." She handed it back to me. The rejection wasn't just about the necklace. It was about the history, the love woven into it. It was all meaningless to her. The final straw, before the Mother's Day card, came 3 months ago. I was at their house when I overheard Tom on the phone out on the back deck. His voice was low, conspiratorial. "No, she's not sick or anything, but you know how it is at that age. She lives alone, getting really dependent. We're looking at some options. Finding a proper place to move her." I froze behind the kitchen door, a dish towel clenched in my fist. A proper place. Like I was a stray dog they needed to take to the pound. I had given them my youth, my money, my energy, my entire life. And in return, I had become a problem they were trying to solve. All these memories swirled in my head as I sat there in my armchair on the night of Mother's Day. The pieces of the puzzle clicked into place, forming a picture of profound and devastating betrayal. They saw me as a poor, lonely old woman who needed them. An open wallet with an expiration date, but here's the thing they didn't know. Here's the secret I had kept for decades. My mother, before she passed, told me about a family trust. It included a beachfront condo in the Bahamas that had been rented out for over 30 years, with the income accumulating in an offshore account I was forbidden to touch until my 70th birthday. On top of that, my Aunt Eleanor, who never had children of her own, had passed away and left me her entire portfolio of investments. Stocks, bonds, mutual funds. Money that had been quietly, steadily growing for years while I was sewing uniforms and cleaning toilets. They thought I was living hand-to-mouth on a government check. They had no idea that I had, sitting quietly, almost $500,000. They had no idea that every dollar I had given them was not out of necessity, but out of love. A love they had just trampled on and laughed at. Sitting there, the cruel words from the card echoing in the silent house, I felt the last of my tears dry up. The grief was gone, burned away by a cold, hard resolve. I wasn't a burden. I was their benefactor. And the Bank of Clara was about to be closed, permanently. I knew exactly what I had to do. The next morning, I didn't wake up feeling sad. I woke up feeling clear. For the first time in years, the fog of obligation and the desperate need to be loved had lifted. I looked at my reflection in the mirror, and I didn't see a frail, 74-year-old woman. I saw a survivor. I saw a woman who had built a life for her child from nothing and was about to do it all over again, but this time, just for herself. I bypassed my usual comfortable cardigans and went to the back of my closet. I pulled out a crisp, tailored gray suit that I had bought for Jessica's college graduation and had worn maybe twice since. I put it on. I styled my silver hair into a neat, elegant chignon. I applied a touch of lipstick. I wasn't dressing for them anymore. I was dressing for me, for the powerful woman they had never bothered to see. My first stop was the bank. My financial advisor, a kind young man named Mr. Harris, was surprised to see me. "Mrs. Miller," he said, ushering me into his office. "What an unexpected pleasure. How can I help you?" I sat down, placed my handbag firmly on my lap, and looked him directly in the eye. "I need to make several significant changes to my accounts today," I said, my voice even and calm. For the next hour, I systematically dismantled the financial safety net I had woven for my daughter's family. First, I instructed him to put an immediate and permanent stop on the $500 automatic monthly transfer to Jessica's account. He raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure, Mrs. Miller? That's been in place for a few years." "Perfectly sure," I replied. Next, I had him close the joint savings account we had opened together for family emergencies. An account that I noted with a grim satisfaction, had only ever seen withdrawals from their end. I had every last cent transferred into my private account, finally. I had him liquidate some of my more accessible investments and transfer a large sum into my primary checking account. Mr. Harris looked genuinely concerned. Clara, may I call you Clara? These are very drastic moves. Is everything all right? I gave him a small, tight smile. Everything, for the first time in a long time, is perfectly fine. It's my money, Mr. Harris. It's time I started acting like it. My second stop was my lawyer's office. Mr. Franklin was an old friend who had handled my affairs for 30 years. He looked at me over the top of his spectacles when I told him my purpose. Clara, you want to completely rewrite your will? This is sudden. Life is sudden, I said simply. I've gained some much-needed perspective. I laid out my new terms with absolute clarity. My entire estate, including my house and all my investments, would no longer go to Jessica and Tom. Instead, it would be used to create a charitable foundation dedicated to helping seniors who have been abandoned by their families. A little bit of poetic justice, I thought. I then established a tightly controlled trust for my grandchildren, Leo and Mia, which they could not access until they were 25. And there was a crucial condition: they could only receive the funds if they could prove, through letters, visits, or calls, that they had independently maintained a genuine, loving relationship with me, not one prompted by their parents. Clara, this is irreversible, Mr. Franklin warned gently. Don't you want to take a few days to think it over? I've had 45 years to think it over, I said, picking up the pen. The last 2 days just provided the conclusion. I signed the new documents with a hand that did not shake. My last stop was a travel agency. The bright posters of tropical locations no longer seemed like a fantasy. I walked up to the counter. I'd like to book a flight to Nassau, please. Of course, the agent said. Round trip? No, I said, a real smile finally breaking through. One way. I didn't just book a seat. I booked a first-class ticket. After a lifetime of putting myself last, it was time to experience what being first felt like. That afternoon, I sat at my old wooden desk at home. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the room. I took out 2 sheets of my finest stationery, the kind you save for occasions that never seem to come. This was the occasion. The first letter was to Jessica. My hand hesitated for only a moment before the words began to flow. My dearest Jessica. By the time you receive this, I will be in Nassau, moving into a home my family left for me years ago, a part of my life I kept private. I am writing to inform you that I have cut off all financial ties between us. The monthly transfer, the emergency funds, all of it has ended. Please do not see this as a punishment, but as the final, most important lesson a mother can teach her child, the lesson of consequences. For decades, my love for you was unconditional. My time, my energy, and my money were yours without question. But somewhere along the way, you began to see my love not as a gift, but as an obligation. You saw your mother not as a person, but as a resource. The card on Mother's Day was cruel, but it was also a gift. It shattered the illusion I was clinging to and forced me to see the truth. I have changed my will. My legacy will now go to people who truly understand the meaning of need and gratitude. Do not ask me for money. Do not send the children to guilt me into coming back. If you truly wish to have your mother in your life again, you will have to earn it. You will have to prove that you value me, Clara. Not what I can do for you, your mother, who has finally learned to value herself. The second letter, to Tom, was much shorter. Tom, I overheard your phone call 3 months ago. The one where you discussed finding a proper place to put me. What you failed to understand is that I have always had a proper place. I have a life and resources you couldn't begin to imagine. You saw my generosity as weakness and my love as dependence. You made a critical miscalculation. You will now have the opportunity to live the life you wanted, one without me as a burden. I wish you the best of luck standing on your own 2 feet. I sealed both envelopes and left them on the coffee table where they would be found. Then, I sat in my armchair and waited for the taxi to arrive. The house was quiet, filled with memories of a life that was now officially over. But I felt no sadness. It took me 74 years, but I finally understood. You teach people how to treat you by what you are willing to tolerate. For too long, I had tolerated disrespect in exchange for scraps of affection. No more. I wasn't running away from a family that didn't want me. I was walking toward a beautiful, sun-drenched new life that was waiting just for me. And for the first time in as long as I could remember, I wasn't scared. I was thrilled. Clara's story is such a powerful reminder that it's never too late to reclaim your life and demand the respect you deserve. It really makes you think about the quiet sacrifices people make every day. I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. What was the biggest lesson you took from Clara's journey? Have you ever had a moment that forced you to stand up for yourself in a way you never thought you could? If you feel comfortable sharing, your story could mean the world to someone else reading it. If this story resonated with you, Please show your support by giving this video a like. It truly helps our channel grow and allows us to bring more stories like this to light. And to make sure you don't miss our next video, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell. We have so many more dramatic and thoughtful stories to share with you. Thank you for being here with me today. No matter what storms you might be navigating in your own life, I hope you remember your own strength. May you find peace in your heart, clarity in your mind, and your own beautiful new beginning.